Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. We are Group 9, and my name is Lamin. I'm here joined by my teammate Gina and Barsat, and we will be presenting about findings on national rental crisis on behalf of Renters Voice Australia. This is more than just rising rents, it's about health, dignity, and security. Families are queuing with 100 others for moldy apartments, and some people are now living in caravans and cars. Our job was to turn these voices into evidence that cannot be ignored. Moving to next slide. Um, Rental crises affect people across Australia, students, families, migrants, and workers. Rent are increasing and many homes are unsafe to live in. And tenants often feel insecure about their housing. What may seem like a housing problem is actually a structural crisis, and that undermines both financial stability and personal well being. As a researcher for Renters Voice Australia, we analyzed 49 real social media posts to hear directly from renters in their own words. Um, Moving to the objectives, our research had three clear objectives. First, to identify the main problems renters are facing. Second, to examine how these issues differ across cities, regions, and territories. And third, to turn lived experience into evidence that can support advocacy and policy reform. Mm, The goal was simple to provide Renters Voice Australia with insight that can push for fair, safe, and affordable housing. And moving to the next slide, um, in summary, we combined quantitative methods such as frequency count and cross tabulation with qualitative methods like thematic and narrative analysis. We found that 29% of renters raised issues about poor condition, while emotion like exhaustion, frustration, and hopelessness were common. This shows that the crisis is not only economic but also deeply human. Um, I would like to hand over the slide to my teammate Versat.
Hello everyone. As Lomin described about has given the introduction about our research and said something about the executive summary. I will be continuing on the report, and I will be talking about the methodology deep dive. And in this slide, we can see that we have done both qualitative and quantitative approach. And to build our finding, we used a balanced methodology. On the quantitative side, we applied frequency count to measure issues, prevalence, cross prevalence to compare regions, and C-square test to check for significance. And on qualitative side, we used the thermometric analysis to cover emotion pattern, narrative narrative inquiry to highlight renters' lived experience. This combined drawing by Baymans for quantitative results and Browns and Clock for quantitative depth ensured that our research was both meaningful, strategic, and reliable. Moving forward to next slide, that will be data preparation and verification. On this slide, we can clearly see our data came directly from social media, which means it was messy. We cleansed it carefully by fixing the broken character, removing emojis, normalizing the punctuation. This clean process gave us accurate result and the ability to scale up our analysis for 49 posts to potentially 49,000 rows using the tools like Google Colab. Insert carefully data preparation give creativity to everything that followed. Moving to the next slide, I'll be talking about quantitative finding. On this quantitative finding, first we can see that 29% of renters raised poor housing condition. Second, they talked about 22% highlighted about affordability and completion. Third, 16% pointed to the market and policy issues, while the remaining 33% covered other concerns. On this, cross prevalence show that capital cities were mostly associated with poor condition, but interestingly, our C square table revealed no significant difference across regions. This tells us that thus regional rental crisis is not confined to one place; it is widespread, and renters everywhere are feeling its effect. Now, I will be handing over to my friend Gina.
So, moving on to qualitative findings and emotions. Now, moving beyond the numbers, we listed closely to the voices behind the data. What we found were raw emotions that tell a deeper story. About, as you can see, 29% of renters expressed disgust, often linked to health risks like mold and unrepaired damage. Likewise, 22% showed frustration and anger, captured in posts about waiting in queues of 100 people for one inspection. 16% reflected hopelessness, such as being evicted despite paying rent on time. And the largest share is 33% revealed exhaustion and anxiety, describing how rising rents left them feeling trapped and powerless. So together, these emotions paint a picture of not just the housing crisis, but a mental health crisis. So moving on to next slide, group insights and hypotheses. So as a team, we drew three main insights from three these findings. So number one is renters are locked in ongoing affordability battles. The second one is substandard housing conditions remain widespread and largely ignored. And the last one is weak regulations allow these issues to persist unchecked. So from these, we formed a clear hypothesis. The more severe the renter problems, the greater the emotional distress experienced by renters. So this hypothesis is testable, measurable, and aligns directly with the data we collected. So, and it also provides a foundation for future research and advocacy. Moving on to next slide, storytelling through data. As they was saying, but statics alone don't move hearts, stories do. That's why we combine the quantitative insight with lived experiences. One post reads, there were 150 people lined up for a moldy dump. Rent spiked 40% and now I lived in my car. This one story embodies the wider crisis, overcrowded inspections, unaffordable hikes, and degrading living conditions. Our visual metaphor, a crumbling house trapped under dollar signs with queues leading into caravans, captures this intersection of numbers and narratives. So, the power of our research lies in the dual approach: statics quantifies and stories humanize. Now, I would like to hand over to Miss Kiran.
डिस्टर्ब कर दो.
Public awareness and advocacy strategy. Good evening, everyone. Let's start with the public awareness campaigns, which is the first step to the addressing the rental crisis. Our goal is to launch a multiple channel campaigns with cross platform like Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. These platforms will allow us to reach a wide and drives audience. The key is emotional storytelling. We want to share real stories from rentals. For example, we can highlight a young family who is facing rising rents or an elderly couple living in a house with mold. These personal stories will help humanize the data uh, and show the true impact of rental crisis on people's lives. And these champions should not just focus on statics. Image and stories should highlight the human toll of the crisis. As a crow it L 2024 and Creighton Institute 2025 have shows emotional storytelling is critical is in creating engagement and urgency with the public. Next, we will talk about collaborating media engagement to further our cause. We need to engage with the media is will help amplify the voice of renters by collaborating with journalists, bloggers, and influencers. We can ensure that these stories reach a much large audience. We should also organize press conference where tenant can speak directly to the media by putting renters at the performance of these discussion. We can bring the rental crisis to the top of the political agenda as Emma 2025 suggests. Working with the media is a key way to make these issues more visible and actionable. Policy advocacy and ongoing research. Moving on to the policy advocacy, we need to push for stronger protection for renters. These includes advocating for rents control, maintains standards, and a long-term lease. These politics will provide greater security for renters and help protect them from being displayed. We can use the research data to back up our recommendation and lobby awake makers for change. This is where the work of a crowd at L 2024 comes in. Evidence based advocacy is the most effective way to drive real change. Finally, we cannot forget the importance of ongoing research. Renters Voice Australia must continue to monitor public sentiments and tracks how the crisis is evolving. Sentiments analysis on social media and politic surveys will help us adjust our advocacy and keep it relevant to renters' need as grown it L 2024 and Mirror 2025 empires inclusivity is key, so we must engage the marginalized group such as low income renters and international students, ensuring that everyone is voice uh, is conclusion and static next step. Now let's summarize the key findings. Our research shows that housing affordability of overall mainly to top issued mentioned in 79.6% of social media post renters are struggling with rising rents, bidding where and a general lack of affordability properties growth at L 2024. Another major concern is poor property condition with 14.3% of renters highlighting issues such as mold leaks and maintenance neglect. Finally, policy failure were mentioned in only 2% of post studying the that rents are aware of the need for reform, but this issue is often not prioritized in public discussion. Australia Council of Social Service and University of New South Wales 2025. Moving forward, Renters' Voice Australia should focus on advocacy for public for policy change in housing affordability, rent, tenant, and protection and property maintains standard. These areas should be the core focus for our future championship. Our next step should be a combined data insight with emotional storytelling to push for these reform empathy driven championship like the ones we discussed earlier will ensure that uh, renters' voice are heard and acted upon by policymakers. With a support of these findings and insight, Renters' Voice Australia has the opportunity to drive real change in the rental market and improve the life of renters across Australia as the Gatton Institute 2025 suggests data backed advocacy is key to creating lasting impact.